Listening here live to the coolest of the cool, the Cooley Cool Show with your host, Brett. That's right, you're listening here live on the coolest of the cool, the Cooley Cool Show, right coast to coast, north to south, yes, maybe even in Antarctica. So we're about to start in just a couple of seconds. We got a good topic of discussion. The Great Awakening, or massive deception. If you haven't done so already, be sure to follow us and like us on our other social media platforms. You can follow me on my TikTok channel, The Cooley Cool Show, my YouTube channel, The Cooley Cool Show. You can also follow me on Twitter at CooleyCool24. You also follow me on Instagram, Brent_TheChamp. Yep. Listening here live on the coolest of the cool, the Cooley Cool Show with your host, Brett. We're going to start in just a couple of seconds. You're listening here to Cooley Cool's Hip Hop Jam. Now, without further ado, you're listening here on the coolest show around. The coolest of the cool. The Cooley Cool Show. Now, your host that rocks it from coast to coast, north to south, and yes, maybe even in Antarctica. Give a round of applause to your host, Brent. Thank you very much, appreciate it. So, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for listening in, all my two listeners, thank you. So, greatly appreciate if you're listening in. We got a good, topic discussion. It is titled The Great Awakening or Massive Deception, along with other conspiracy theories here on this well, coolest show around. So, um, I don't know whether many people have. I know probably people you probably may have heard of it back in the day growing up. You're taking a history class and they would like to talk about the topic of discussion about, hey, what was the Great Awakening? If you're in college, you took a history class in college, you probably came across it. Maybe not so much in high school, but as I said before, probably in high school, but maybe in college, depending on what classes you took. The Great Awakening. So I'm going to do a little bit to try to get you familiarized as far as what the first Great Awakening, because apparently there were two. And there might have been three. There might have been four. Three. 4 o'clock, around the clock, 6 o'clock, go. We're going to rock. Around the clock we go. The clock stops. I need to know the words and I can't really remember. But anyway, so they give you a general synopsis of what the Great Awakening was. And I'm looking at an article here by the History Channel, which actually I'm looking up on the history.com. And I'm looking at the Great Awakening. Now, it says the Great Awakening was a religious revival that impacted the English colonies in America during the 1730s and 1740s. The movement came at a time when the idea of scholar rationalism was being emphasized and passion for religion had grown slight. Christian leaders often traveled from town to town preaching about the gospel, emphasizing about salvation from sins and promoting enthusiasm for Christianity. The result was a renewed dedication towards religion. Many historians believe the Great Awakening had a lasting impact on various Christian dominations and American culture at large. Now, the first Great Awakening, this is where I'm getting into as far as what we're talking about the first Great Awakening. In the 1700s, a European movement known as the Enlightenment, or the Age of Reason, was making its way across the Atlantic Ocean to the American colonies. Enlightenment thinkers emphasized a scientific and logical view of the world while downplaying religion. Now, this is where we're getting at it. This is where we're going to get heavy, hot and heavy. This is where we're going to kick it off good. This is what I want you to remember. This is what I want you to highlight. This is what I want you to know. Now, I'm going to say this again. I'm going to say it to you so that way you kind of understand what I'm talking about and the reason why I'm getting to this, and that kind of might give you a little insight to where I'm headed to in this. Enlightenment thinkers emphasized a scientific and logical view of the world while downplaying religion. All right? Highlight that, remember it, store it in your big think box up in your head. In many ways, religion was becoming more formal and less personal during this time, which led to low church attendance. Christians were feeling compelled, with their methods of worship, and some were disillusioned with how wealth and rationalism were dominating culture. Many began to crave a return to religious piety. Well, what do we have here? So, I'm not going to read all this stuff about this and bore you to death because I'm not reading a book. But you had a lot of these scholars, these ministers, these preachers speaking on behalf of Christianity, which was mainly what was talking about promoting Christianity. And many of them were pretty much trying to promote their own way of thinking, trying to get people to understand their thinking. Pretty much were influencing a lot of what one would say what they wanted people to think, because they probably felt those many people weren't really, I guess, weren't that much enthusiastic about, God and worship. I mean, this is, I'm reading, this is what it's saying, the content of it. Um, Basic themes of the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening brought various philosophies, ideas, doctrines to the forefront of Christian belief. Some of the major themes included all people are born sinners. So, wow. All people are born sinners. Sin without salvation will send a person to hell. All people, well, sin without salvation will send a person to hell. So, maybe baptizing people so that they won't go to hell. All people can be saved if they confess their sins to God, seek forgiveness, and accept God's grace. So basically, you have your confession, you go in, you tell them what you did, and you move on. And though you tell your confessions to, the father, the preacher, the sermon, that you should be forgiven. All people can have a direct and emotional connection with God, which is very good. Should have some type of emotional connection with God. And if you have a direct connection with God, that is also good. But what type of direct connection do you have? But would that kind of fall with the emotional? Because God is everything and God is all around us. But at the same time, is it just emotional connection that you're having with God? Religion shouldn't be formal and institutionalized, but rather casual and personal. So, kind of saying religion shouldn't be formal and institutionalized. It should more kind of lead up to the person, whether I would interpret this, which is a lot what religion. I would interpret this as having should be free will. So you should be able to not be told you're going, blah blah, this and that. It is what it is, yada yada. Maybe for the old school, it's kind of like, hey, Sunday, you're getting your ass up, you're going to you're going to I say college, you're going to church, whether you like it or not. Shut your mouth. It's what's happening. It's what's going down. You don't have a goddamn say in it. Get your dressed, get your clothes on, wear your Sunday's best, or you're going to a certain school that promotes this, but it should probably be casual and personal, meaning you as a person should kind of be a casual thinker and whether or not you want to accept this. But then it leads back to the part all people are born sinners, so says fuck, you're gonna sin anyway. So what? I don't know. It's just different things are breaking down, old lights and new lights. Not everyone embraces the idea of the Great Awakening. One of the leading voices of the opposition was Charles Chuck Cooney, a minister in Boston. If you read this, a lot of you're going to see is a lot of these ministers, your priest, your fathers, they're all going to be wanting to talk on behalf of what they think is right and where people should be following, this path. And I mean, and I'm gonna go back to something to where I wanted to kind of make sure that many people kind of understand by listening to my, you know, um, let's just say, kind of not second guessing, but more of a kind of a thought process, um, which goes back to what I had said here. Enlightenment thinkers emphasized a scientific and logical view of the world while downplaying religion. All right, this came from the First Great Awakening in the 1700s, the European philosophical movement, known as the Enlightenment or the Age of Reasoning. So you have a bunch of people who are feeling much more enlightened. They're feeling much more in tune, but at the same time, they're still all gathering to a religious type of atmosphere, and they're a little bit more thinkers. I would say these thinkers, since that statement had said Enlightenment thinkers emphasize a scientific and logical view of the world. So basically, you have where people are starting to to you understand that you can't say that, well, there was dragons here slain here, and this, that, and in the book of this, whatever. People are starting to have a little bit more logical view of the world, and like, well, that makes you're saying that's kind of in can happen, but there's really been no evidence or scientific proof that maybe a one-eyed giant has ever lived on the earth. Is where people start to kind of still are looking into, I would say, the idea of, religion, but they're not taking it as much as they kind of feel. They're kind of more like figuring out some of this stuff might be a little bit far fetched, so to speak, which would now, by the right person or these individuals creating influence among mass, because people are now saying, well, that doesn't really make much sense. And they start to have a little bit more thinking thought process. You get the right type of person to come along, or right type of individuals, which they did, which I've said this in my other podcast, and I said men are corrupt, or human beings can be corrupted by whatever type of reasoning or, you know, motive that they tend to do this shit for. So what could have happened, and which I do believe happened, this is just my belief, that certain individuals decide to take advantage of this. So that's like, let's just say, me saying, oh, wow, people are starting to have a new enlightenment of thinking. And it's not really a new religion. It's just people are starting to be a little bit more ostracized, a little free thinkers. So if I wanted to kind of say, wait a minute, there's this way, but I want to get the people to buy into my bullshit, what do you set people to do? You start trying to do the same thing and then passing your own thought process onto them, saying, if you come this way, this is the better thing. But you know what? You can be saved. And guess what? Going to hell is a possibility. But you can be saved. But you do these things. And this is where we have issues throughout history. Because I'm pretty sure you, of all my two listeners, have came across people that believe in the Bible, that are, hey, I believe in the Bible, believe everything in the Bible. And you have people says, I'll take the good and the bad from the Bible. Then you have people says, I really don't believe anything from the Bible because sometimes stuff in the Bible doesn't really make sense because people are interpreting one way, but then I interpret it another way. Like, and that's fine because that's each and every person's interpretation of the Bible or what has happened in past time. But overall, people have a way of believing in something. And when believing in something, it gives people a type of purpose, a type of reasoning to why are they here. Now, with this new enlightenment period that's going on through the 1700s, the early 1700s, people start to kind of figure a little, oh, that's not really maybe the truth in certain things. As stated here, and says, in many ways, religion was becoming more formal. So you still had people going, but it was more formal, kind of more of like you're gonna go, and less personal during this time, which led to low church attendance. So people were like, I'm believing it, but I'm also going the path of something else. You know, um, it's really hard because I don't really like to pick on religion like this, but there's so much room for, I would say, almost a confusion part of people not knowing which way they should go, which way they should think. Should they be free thinking or not, or follow this? But it would take so many people to just go ahead and say, well, I could actually profit off by influence people to go on the way I would like people to think. And trust me, if you get the elites of the elites figuring that you're having too many people becoming so-called critical thinkers, you kind of have to be able to contain that. especially if you don't want people thinking a certain way or people not going in a certain way. If you want to steer people in the right way, you have to influence them some way, shape, and or form. And it may sound crazy as anything, but guess what? What did I say? Highlight, remember, I said this. Enlightenment thinkers emphasize a scientific. Why would they put scientific? So, yes, you have scientists back in the day starting to figure that certain things in science are real, are accurate, are proven, but not everything. There's still scientific theories that are not true. They're just a theory. But with enough manipulation, enough smooth talking, enough like, hey, we could do this and this and that, you can gain influence on a lot of people to start thinking what? A logical view of the world. I.e., well, a lot of the Bible says certain things or this and that nature, and that's why I brought up and says, oh, well, I haven't, there no, you know, evidence to support that then there's been a one-eyed cyclops giant that ruled on the earth. You start thinking a little bit like, what's the basis of reality here for a minute? Are we thinking reality or are we thinking in Wonderland? Which, this is where I think, and I'm not saying for anybody else, this is where I think it's at a point in time where I believe that science and scientific thought process and certain things began to slowly but surely infiltrate it and make its move. It's like a person running in a race. And you know every time when they're running whatever how many meters race and then the person finally gets their kick to pass all the other racers because they have a reserve left in the tank. And then when they get that kick takes the time because everybody's still going to stagnate, but they had the reserve. They're like, okay, it's my time. Boom! Now I'm gonna take charge, get in front. I think this is what science did. Science waited for a perfect opportunity to not get their second kick or get no. They had enough where people look at science because I mean, think about it in the Roman, the Greek times, back in when Rome ruled for like 300 plus years. They had things like plumbing, fresh water, and things of that nature. Great architecture, sculptures, and things of that nature. Um, but what was kind of missing? I mean, people looked at this as the stars, and, the astrology stuff, the zodiac stuff, but it was more of agriculture, engineering feats, and things of that nature. But it really wasn't much of a plague on science as far as what I've read. Maybe I could be wrong. But it seems science was there, but then science, in order to kind to get religion, since religion was a very big thing for most of all, as far as humans have been, I guess, before the cave, I guess after the caveman kind of era went down the primitive, people started to look into as far as beliefs and stuff, and people needed something to believe in. So, and science was kind of there, but at the same time, religion is such a very strong thing. That's why a lot of times you don't want to argue about anybody with some religion because you don't want to, because it's people's beliefs. But science wanted to wait it out, and from that point, when it could, then it took off, and now science found an opening and decided to take it. Running back, boom, he gets handed the ball, boom, the hole opens up, and boom, he runs it, and now he's running down the football field headed to a touchdown. And I think this is what science did. Science took its first chance, saw daylight, and it ran. When religion was kind of being questioned. And when religion was being questioned, you had other influencers who were scholars or scholars. I'm sorry, did I say scholars? What the hell? Who were scholars back in their day that were supposedly very smart and, geniuses of their times. They began to say, well, this person's smart. So people followed them. They were influencers, drawers, got people liking them. And guess what? They could slowly churn and get people into the way they wanted them to think, which I believe this is how science influenced a lot of the way the world is. It's nothing bad. It's just this is how science did. They didn't just go up front with it. They showed certain things, but in the same sense, they snuck in through the back door. And if you know now, ask a person that's really into science whether they believe in God. If you ask a person who's delved into science, I don't care whether it's medical science, I don't care if it's, you know, um, the NASA type of science and stuff like that. Ask a scientist if they believe in God. You probably will get some science that do because that's a form of belief that they had growing up. So they're going to consider that fact. But it's going to be kind of hard for a scientist not to hesitate and think about it for a minute because they've had so much. Well, they base everything on fact and evidence, which is now people get upset with certain people talk. Said no, science isn't a fucking belief; it's a fact. Meaning, science is saying we have all this evidence to support such and such or whatever. It's no longer up to debate. It's no longer up for talk. It's no longer for discussion. It's a fact. So scientists will be like, well, do you believe in God? And they'd be like, well, I believe if there's facts to support that, that, and it kind of will boggle your mind because you're like, whoa. Now you're seeing how certain things kind of get played into a lot of stuff. It's a revolving door, ladies and gentlemen. Everything, I'm not meaning revolving door where it's going to come back and circle around. No, what I mean it's a revolving door, everything's circle. Meaning everything is going to go circle and it's going to continue to be a circle. But it's going to try to miss that part. And it's going to spiral and spiral around and around instead of going back through the door. But I believe that this is how certain things gotten. Now, not and another way, and I've said it on my previous podcast, I said, what's the biggest setback to these thought process where you're able to influence a lot of people back in these days? What is the one reason why a lot of these people probably got away with this shit and were able to influence? And I'm talking religious people. I'm talking about the scholars back then. I'm talking about the scientists back then. I'm talking about the preachers, the sermons, the gospel, all of them. What is one of the main ways, the reason why they were able to create such influence back in the day, back then? Anyone? Anyone? Do you want to know how? Because not many people back in the day were literate. Not many people back in the day could read or write. Not many people at all. The vast majority of people couldn't read and write. So guess what? They were being told by other people and they were going ahead and believing that. So when people were believing this, they were taking it as far as being true and accurate. And this is what I'm saying, where science kind of took the back door because they saw an opening and now they took it and they ran with it. So guess what? Science came with all the formulas, came with all the equations, came with the answers, came with not everything, but almost a lot of the whole big piece of the puzzle to a lot of things. And they shaped it and they formed it into the way they wanted it. And to before too long, when people started to be able to catch up with the times and not being illiterate and be able to read, be right, all the books and the texts were already fitted and formatted to a certain way of thinking. So you have people now who were influenced by individuals speaking, taking up their whole thing by telling them this and that, and then not being known how to read or write, and you're listening, which people started like, well, I gotta get, because they were starting to be a little bit more free thinking, but as a free thinking of not being able to be a reader, a writer, they were taking what people were saying for Oh, I'll listen to them. They sound very smooth. They sound convincing. And then running with it, and then believing it. And then years down the line, those individuals end up becoming believing what they've been told, maybe read a book, and now passing the theories and thought process on to the next generation. That generation believes it from that past generation. Now you have a running occurrence where shit just now is spiraling, not out of control, but spiraling to the benefit of those that want it to be away. That's how I see how science has made its way. And it could possibly be from maybe the first Great Awakening. I mean, why the hell would they have the first Great Awakening? Obviously, they had a second Great Awakening, but why would they have a thing called the Great Awakening? What? People weren't believing in the word of the Lord. People were just because they started seeing how certain things were, and so that and able to keep people in check. You just had to come up with some type of, I would say, way of influencing people to get people to get back into line, shut the hell up, believe what I'm telling you to believe. Oh, you're getting a little bit too smart. Now I got to change you. Now I got to get you to influence. I would say, doesn't this sound quite awfully familiar as how things are going in today's date? I mean, think about it. If you look at how certain things are and how to influence a lot of people or whatever you want to get to people, what's the one of the main attraction to influence a vast majority of people? Social fucking media. At this day and age, information flows so quickly, something will be told within a less of about a couple minutes, seconds, depending on if you're in the algorithm, which understandably now the elites of the elites control the algorithm. So if you're not catering to what they want to hear, you're not going to be in the algorithm to where it will be posted and sent out to the vast majority of people so that way they can see it. And if you think I'm bullshitting you, you think I'm lying, you think the flow of information is free, you're fucking sadly mistaken. The flow of information is fucking restricted and censored and fucking can get shit canned in a matter of fucking seconds if they doesn't cater to them. And when I'm talking about them, I'm talking about the elites of the elites, the ones that secretly run this fucking world. And this is true because I had did a podcast earlier, a couple days ago, I believe last week, when I talked about it. Says, oh, the popular YouTube guys, Dude Perfect. These guys do cool and incredible trick shots, and it's really cool. It's fascinating to watch them because they take a lot of time and dedication to do all this stuff. But they did one where one of their buddies won a chance to go up to space, so-called space, and long story short, I've done a podcast about how they were no spacesuits, by the way. Even the Red Bull guy who was in a little capsule at a certain altitude, he had a fucking helmet and a spacesuit on. All right, before he fucking jumped down, parachute down into the fucking back into down to Earth. These guys, this video they didn't have any. All right, so it's just. But anyway, looking at it, check this out. They have Dude Perfect. These guys have like 56 or 58 point some million subscribers, right? So you have tons of people that's just millions of people subscribing to them, millions of people watching their videos, millions of people being influenced, keyword influenced, by what they do, watching it. And like I said, these guys are people getting paid money. So you have a company comes by, says, hey, we need to promote a little bit more about our cause, i.e. the elites influencing again. And as they do, they go to somebody that has so much more pull, so much more grasp to get their ideas and messages out to the people, i.e. Dude Perfect, so that way their information can be passed on to Dude Perfect in a correlation and then sent out to their millions upon millions of fucking subscribers and viewers and all that shit. So even if maybe 10 people watches it. That's bullshit. Which I ain't me. As I watch them, that fucking yeah, we're traveling. That's bullshit. But the vast other millions upon millions of people are like, that's fucking cool. Holy shit. You got the bull by the fucking balls. They fucking sent it out to a vast majority of people that are now influenced. And i.e., what they did was bullshit. But you got the bulls behind the fucking balls. Influence. You think I'm bullshitting you? Check some of these videos out from fucking. Look on here. There's a guy named Randy Kramer. I think he passed away. But he would always go and debunk people who said they were psychics, saying they could make shit move, they make shit levitate and whatever. And he would go on the bench of debunking shit. And he was a scientist because he was like, you know what? As a scientist, he was out there to debunk people that were trying to fraud and scam people. Because motherfuckers will try that shit. And late 70s and 80s, he was debunking all that shit from people, right? Yeah, people. I remember there was one episode I was watching the thing on YouTube. And this guy, he was a sermon or whatever in a church, and he was like, oh, sister, you can get up and walk. We're going to make them legs feel better. We're going to get you going right. We're going to help you. We're going to get you going. Just head aware. You know, this motherfucker had set up when people first entered the church that they had what? Prayer cards. And people would write down in the prayer cards and certain things and write their name, their address down. Yes, they write their name and their address down. And then during the point where the preacher, he would be talking and he had an earpiece in. And then the stagehand would be back there reading, and they would be like, oh, they have a problem. They have arthritis in their legs, and they want it gone. And then he would be like, is something wrong with your sister? Oh, you have arthritis in the legs. Oh, my God. And as he would say that shit, and the person would be like, oh, my God, how would they know? He must have psychic powers. Religion banked on that, too. Banked on it. Like, literally. Banked on it. I mean, ideally, it's a lot. It's a lot to grasp. It's a lot because I tell you, humans, and I'm not saying man, I'm saying humans in general. Man and woman are fucking corrupt. Corrupt as shit. My last podcast I believe I did on the Crypto Queen. She's able to talk her way into getting billionaires to invest in her fucked up company, OneCoin, and to have them invest millions of dollars because they were looking to get more money to be more rich. But apparently when they ended up finding out she was fucking them over and was siphoning and taking that money, what did she do? She dipped the fuck out. And before she dipped out, the reason why the federal government and other world law enforcement agencies began to fucking find out, wait a minute, this fucking chick is fucking trying to deceive us. The reason why they found out, you know why? Because the billionaires and the rich people were like, oh, this bitch is trying to steal our money. Oh, fuck no. You know, they were like, get this bitch. She's not robbing from us. But what was she? She was influencing, talking, and yada, yada, yada. Talking all that good shit. And getting people to buy into what the fuck she was saying. And when she was doing this, she was... I was going to say, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Yeah. Or don't pay no attention to the woman behind the curtain. You know, don't be looking. All right? But influencers. The Great Awakening. A great period for science to sneak in through the back door. To slowly, but surely, influence its targeted audience. And they did this beautifully. And yeah, you can say, well, there was other periods of time back in the day. Yeah, there was. I'm pretty sure there was. But as not as much as it kind of was almost maybe could be a down point for religion. And this was just a European, you know, scholars during this period of time during the Great Awakening, as they were traveling across. There's apparently a second one, Second Great Awakening, which was focused more on America, and it's so kind of fucking funny as you put it. It's a European scholars that are and is having issues with the religion there, and then they come to America, and then shit starts going certain ways, and they're like, gotta get these motherfuckers in the rap because these motherfuckers starting to think about certain shit, man. And then next what happens, you start doing a little bit more of influencing, and you got to influence these new people in new country and to get them to think the way you want them to think. I mean, isn't it quite odd that this tends to happen? You get great influencers, great people that can talk, great people that can talk their way into anything and get them people to buy and hook, line, and sinker. It's funny, isn't it? It's funny how the world works, right? Funny how the world works. Really is extremely funny how the world works. You have people that can influence, sway the cause of certain things. I mean, shiznizzle, full shizzle. I mean, well, I'm out a lot of words. I mean, we'll have a part 2 for the Second Great Awakening, but just take thought process what I'm talking about. And also, my next podcast, we're going to talk about the maps, and the reason why I talk about the maps is because, I mean, obviously from satellite pictures and the globe pictures, you see, oh, this is how the maps are. Who the fuck really went to each fucking continent and fucking went coast and walked all around down the coast and fucking drew this shit out? Did they just like, no, we're going to do it by scientific terms? I mean, I'm kind of hardly, not believing the fact that, oh, well, these scientific, these smart people, these genius people, went from, the Arctic Circle, found out there was certain shit there, mapped it out as far as I'm going to walk across the coast, I'm going to write it down as I'm going across all the way down to fucking Florida. Yeah, sure you did, pal. Sure the fuck you did. So, whatever. We'll talk about that on my next podcast because, oh, and my time's running out. Enough of me running my mouth, running my gums. So, it's always fun to talk about some of this stuff. So, let people know, expand your minds, understand the bullshit, understand these fucking people that are just playing games with people. Because it's always fueled by what? The almighty dollar. It is. Almighty dollar. It's what people have to do, I guess. Well, the elite's gonna do it, whether you like it or not. I mean, shit. Look at the eggs. Damn near $7. Fuck out of here. So, if you haven't already done it already, be sure to like, subscribe, follow us on our other social media platform. Follow me on my TikTok channel, The Coolly Cool. Follow me on my YouTube channel, The Coolly Cool Shit. Also follow me on my Twitter at Coolly Cool 2412. Also follow me on my Instagram page at Brent_the_champ. So, as always, rocking coast to coast, north to south, and yes, maybe even in Antarctica. And if you're in Antarctica, let me know if it's still cold there. So you're already here on The Coolest to Cool, The Coolly Cool Show. Take care.